entities never pleases me by worship of my deities in the temple. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. There are 64 different prescriptions for worship of the deity in the temple. There are many items offered to the deity, some valuable and some less valuable. It is prescribed in Bhagavad Gita. Quote, if a devotee offers me a small flower, a leaf, some water, or a little fruit, I will accept it. The real purpose is to exhibit one's loving devotion to the Lord. The offerings themselves are secondary. If one has developed a loving devotion to the Lord and simply offers many kinds of foodstuffs, fruits, and flowers without real devotion, the offering will not be accepted by the Lord. We cannot bribe the personality of Godhead. He is so great that our bribery has no value, nor has he any scarcity, since he is full in himself. What can we offer him? Everything is produced by him. We simply offer to show our love and gratitude to the Lord. This gratitude and love for Krishna is exhibited by a pure devotee who knows that the Lord lives in every living entity. As such, temple worship necessarily includes distribution of prasada. It is not that one should create a temple in his private apartment or private room, offer something to the Lord, and then eat. Of course, that is better than simply cooking foodstuffs and eating without understanding one's relationship with the Supreme Lord. People who act in this manner are just like animals. But the devotee who wants to elevate himself to the higher level of understanding must know that the Lord is present in every living entity. And as stated in the previous verse, one should be compassionate to other living entities. A devotee should worship the Supreme Lord, be friendly to persons who are on the same level, and be compassionate to the ignorant. One should exhibit his compassion for ignorant living entities by distributing prasada. Distribution of prasada distribution of prasada to the ignorant masses of people is essential for persons who make offerings to the personality of God. Real love and devotion is accepted by the Lord. Many valuable foodstuffs may be presented to a person, but if the person is not hungry, all such offerings are useless for him. Similarly, we may offer many valuable items to the deity, but if we have no real sense of devotion and no real sense of the Lord's presence everywhere, then we are lacking in devotional service. In such a state of ignorance, we cannot offer anything acceptable to the Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Okay, so this verse, Canto 3, chapter 29, text 24, says, my dear mother, even if he worships with proper rituals and paraphernalia, a person who's ignorant of my presence in all living entities never pleases me by the worship of my deities in the temple. Okay, so that's a very significant statement by the Lord. So we cannot be a pretender. We have to be really serious about serving Krishna with love and devotion. Otherwise, no matter how many things that we offer to the Lord, He won't really accept them. And even if He, meaning the devotee, worships with proper rituals and paraphernalia, a person who is ignorant of my presence in all living entities never pleases me by the worship of my deities in the temple. Yeah, actually, I saw this practically when I was a young kid. I was at the time, I was like 12 years old. And the church that I went to was in a black neighborhood. And one black man walked into the church, and he was surrounded by about 10 people. They surrounded him and said, "What are you doing in the church?" And he said, "Well, I thought this was a church of God." And the men that were circling him, they said, "Well, you should go to your church. This is our church." I was just a kid. I was just, I think, 10 years old. And I heard this and I saw this. And they didn't let the black man into the church. I mean, he was in the church, but he wasn't actually, he was just near the door of the entrance. And they surrounded him with about 10 men. And they told him that this is not your church, so you have to leave. You go to one of your churches. So that confused me at the time. I didn't know why they did that. Now, later on, I realized they were prejudiced. They didn't like black people coming into the church. Only white people could come into the church. Right? So I didn't object to anything, but I was confused by it. Later on, I could understand that this was the type of what you would call bodily ignorance. And just because he was a black man, but he walked in the church and said, "Look, I thought this was a Christian church." And the men said, "Yes, it is, but it's not for your type of person." So they chased him away, and he was like perplexed. I was perplexed, and I never forgot it. I never forgot it because I thought it was like, I didn't understand exactly why they did it at that time. But later on, I understood that they were prejudiced. They didn't want black people coming into the church, even though at that time our church was in a black neighborhood. Now later on, they moved out of that neighborhood into an all-white neighborhood again, and still, and even to today now, it's in an all-white neighborhood. Anyway, that's why it says, even if he worships with proper rituals and paraphernalia, a person who is ignorant of my presence in all living entities never pleases me by the worship of my deities in the temple. It's a very profound statement by Krishna. Okay, and it says in the purport, it says, in the Bhagavad Gita, if a devotee offers me a small flower, a leaf, some water, or a little fruit, I will accept it. The real purpose is to exhibit one's loving devotion to the Lord. The offerings themselves are secondary. If one has not developed loving devotion to the Lord and simply offers many kinds of foodstuffs, fruits, and flowers without real devotion, the offering will not be accepted by the Lord. We cannot bribe the personality of Godhead. He is so great that our bribery has no value, nor has he any scarcity. since he is full in himself, what can we offer him? Everything is produced by him. We simply offer to show our love and gratitude to the Lord. These are all correct statements, profound statements. This gratitude and love for God is exhibited by a pure devotee who knows that the Lord lives in every living entity. That includes Black people, brown people, white people, etc. It's not that it's not based on the color of the skin. The skin is only skin deep anyway. It's only maybe not even a quarter of an inch thick, less than that, of the bodily skin. So therefore, Krishna is for everyone. And if we say, well, Black people are not allowed, that would be a major mistake. Black people are also, they have the potential of being very good devotees. So we should not discriminate on the bodily appearance of a person. If there's any discrimination, is this person clean? Is this person a devotee? Is this person, bowing down to the Lord, etc.? So if we look at only that one criterion, the color of the skin, we will make many mistakes, and Krishna won't be pleased because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead for everyone. So, therefore, this says, we simply offer to show our love and gratitude to the Lord. Everything is produced by him. We simply offer to show our love and gratitude to the Lord. This gratitude and love for God is exhibited by pure devotees who knows that the Lord lives in every living entity, and that includes the white people, the brown people, the Black people, everybody, every living entity. As such, temple worship necessarily includes distribution of prasada. It is not that one should create a temple in his private apartment or private room, offer something to the Lord, and then eat. Of course, that is better than simply cooking foodstuffs and eating without understanding one's relationship with the Supreme Lord. People who act in this manner are just like animals, but the devotee who wants to elevate himself to the higher level of understanding must know that the Lord is present in every living entity. And as stated in the previous verse, one should be compassionate to other living beings. A devotee should worship the Supreme Lord, be friendly to persons who are on the same level, and be compassionate to the ignorant. One should exhibit his compassion for ignorant living entities by distributing prasada. One should exhibit his compassion for ignorant living entities by distributing prasada. Distribution of prasada to the ignorant masses of people is essential for persons who make offerings to the personality of Godhead. Well, we do that. We distribute a lot of prasada every day, and especially in the festival times. Distribution of prasada to the ignorant masses of people is essential for persons who make offerings to the personality of Godhead. Real love and devotion is accepted by the Lord. Many valuable foodstuffs may be presented to a person, but if the person is not hungry, all such offerings are useless for him. Similarly, we may offer many valuable items to the deity, but if we have no real sense of devotion and no real sense of the Lord's peace presence everywhere, then we are lacking in devotional service In such a state of ignorance, we cannot follow anything acceptable to the Lord. All right, so pretty pretty strong statement here. And then, if we have no real sense of devotion and no real sense of the Lord's presence everywhere, then we are lacking in devotional service. In such a state of ignorance, we cannot offer anything acceptable to the Lord. Wow. So there's a not equivocal statements. They're direct and very powerful statements made here. Okay, so Canto 3, chapter 29, text 25. Performing his prescribed duties, one should worship the deity of the Supreme Person of Godhead until one realizes my presence in his own heart and in the hearts of other living entities as well. And it doesn't say in the hearts of other human beings. It says in the hearts of other living entities as well. That means everybody, every living being. The worship of the deity of the Supreme Person of Godhead is prescribed herewith, even for persons who are simply discharging their prescribed duties. There are prescribed duties for the different social classes of men, the Brahmanas, the Vaishyas, the Kshatriyas, and the Sudras, and for different ashramas, brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa. One should worship the deity of the Lord until one appreciates the presence of the Lord in every living entity. In other words, one should not be satisfied simply by discharging his duties properly. He must realize his relationship and the relationship of all other living entities with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If he does not understand this, then even though he discharges his prescribed duties properly, it is to be understood that he is simply laboring without profit. Wow. Waste of time. The word swakarmakrit in this verse is very significant. Swakarmakrit is one who engages in discharging his prescribed duties. It is not that one who has become a devotee of the Lord or who engages in devotional service should give up his prescribed duties. No one should be lazy under the plea of devotional service. One has to execute devotional service according to his prescribed duties. Swakarmakrit means that one should discharge the duties prescribed for him without neglect. Well, we have duties that are prescribed to us. We have to wake up early in the morning. We have to bathe. We have to hear Bhagavad Gita and discuss it. We have to engage in all kinds of devotional service, especially hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. And this way, these are duties that we have to do every day. So we have the opportunity to be connected to Krishna by these duties that are done on a regulated basis. If we do that, then we gradually make spiritual advancement and we understand who Krishna is and how to serve Krishna, and eventually we develop love for Krishna. So you can't love someone unless you have knowledge of that person. And more than knowledge is developing this complete surrender to the Lord. That means that we love the Lord. If we surrender completely to the Lord and engage in his devotional service day after day for the rest of our life, That means that we have developed love for the Lord. So, can a person mechanically do these things without love for the Lord? It's possible, yes. But the regulated devotional service is one aspect by which we can understand that this person is serious about Krishna consciousness. But there are other aspects also that have to be present. So it's not only the regulated following of the laws of Krishna consciousness, it's also with the emotions of love and devotion that are, let's say, real signs of one's surrender to the Lord. When one has actually these feelings of love and unalloyed devotion to the Lord. Okay, so text 26. As the blazing fire of death, I cause great fear to whoever makes the least discrimination between himself and other living entities because of a differential outlook. Okay, that means someone who differentiates according to the color of the skin or other physical, let's say, attributes of a person. Purport: there are bodily differentiations among all varieties of living entities, but a devotee should not distinguish between one living entity and another on such a basis. A devotee's outlook should be that both the soul and the super soul are equally present in all varieties of living entities. That's a huge statement. Now, one should be the devotee's outlook or the way they see things should be that both the soul and the super soul are equally present in all varieties of living entities. All varieties of living entities, that includes all living entities: birds, bees, bugs, human beings, demons, and devotees, and so forth. So that's what this statement is saying. In other words, a devotee should not distinguish between one living entity and another on such a basis of bodily differentiations among varieties of living entities. A devotee's outlook should be that both the soul and the super soul are equally present in all varieties of living entities. Well, there are a lot of varieties of living entities. There are birds, there's bees, there's human beings, and so forth. So we have to have this universal vision of the Lord. That is very important. And the Lord is universally present in everything, in everyone, all living and non-living things. He's present everywhere. That's why it says here, there are bodily differentiations among all varieties of living entities, but a devotee should not distinguish between one living entity and another on such a basis. What basis? Basis of the body. A devotee's outlook should be that both the soul and the super soul are equally present in all varieties of the living entities. Okay, so therefore, the devotee has universal vision of all living entities as the all living entities have originally come from Krishna. Therefore, he should offer respect to all living entities. All right, text 27. Therefore, through charitable gifts and attention, as well as through friendly behavior, and by viewing all to be alike, one should propitiate me, meaning Krishna, who abide in all creatures as their very self. Okay, it's S with a capital S. It's not a small s. So if it's a capital S, it's referring to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this verse is very important. It says, therefore, through charitable gifts and attention, as well as through friendly behavior, and by viewing all to be alike, one should propitiate me. It means to satisfy the Lord. Propitiate. Once you look that word up, Propitiate. Propitiate. Propitiate means to satisfy.
Appease, to win or regain the favor of either a god or spirit or person by doing something that pleases them.
Yeah. One should propitiate me. In other words, doing something that pleases, right? The living entity. One should propitiate me, who abide in all creatures as their very self. So therefore, it says, therefore, through charitable gifts and attention, as well as through friendly behavior, and by viewing all to be alike, one should propitiate me, who abide in all creatures as their very self. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It should not be misunderstood that by the super soul, it should not be misunderstood that because the super soul is dwelling within the heart of a living entity, the individual soul has become equal to him. The equality of the super soul and the individual soul is misconceived by the impersonalist. Here it is distinctly mentioned that the individual soul should be recognized in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The method of worshiping the individual soul is described here as either giving charitable gifts or behaving in a friendly manner, free from any separatist outlook. Wow. Separatist outlook. The impersonalist sometimes accepts a poor individual soul as being Daritya Narayana, meaning that Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has become poor. This is a contradiction. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is full in all opulences. He can agree to live with a poor soul or even with an animal, but this does not make him poor. There are two Sanskrit words used here, mana and dana. Mana indicates superior, and dana indicates one who gives charitable gifts or is compassionate towards an inferior. We cannot treat the Supreme Personality of Godhead as an inferior who is dependent on our charitable gifts. When we give charity, it is to a person who is inferior in his material or economic condition. Charity is not given to a rich person. Similarly, it is explicitly stated here that mana, respect, is offered to a superior, and charity is offered to an inferior. So mana means respect, and the respect offered to a superior. The living entities, according to different results of fruitive activities, may become rich or poor, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unchangeable. He is always full in six opulences. Treating a living entity equally does not mean treating him as one would treat the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Compassion and friendliness do not necessitate falsely elevating someone to the exalted position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should not, at the same time, misunderstand that the supersoul situated in the heart of an animal, like a hog, and the supersoul situated in the heart of a learned Brahmana are different. The supersoul in all living entities is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his omnipotency, he can live anywhere, and he can create his Vaikuntha situation everywhere. That is his inconceivable potency. Therefore, when Narayana is living in the heart of a dog, he does not become a hog Narayana. He is always Narayana and is unaffected by the body of the hog. Well, that means that we should be conscious that Krishna is in the heart of every living entity. But this, let's say, compassion and friendliness do not necessitate falsely elevating someone to the exalted position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I saw this once. I was at this festival very, very long time ago, and I had a banana in my hand. And I met this man who was who was born in Vrindavan, and he was dressed, like a devotee, dhoti and so forth, with tilak. And he was the first person I ever met at that time that was born in Vrindavan. He was the first person that I met. So I was like really, impressed because I had never met anyone. I hadn't been to Vrindavan at that time, and I had never met anyone from Vrindavan. So we were talking, and I had a banana in my hand when we were talking, and then this pretty woman walked past us, and he started, and he was talking. When he saw the woman, he turned his head from facing me, but he kept talking to me. And as she passed by, he at one point grabbed my banana and walked behind the woman and stopped her and started talking with her and stopped talking to me, right? And gave her the banana. And then, hello, what's your name? What's my name? Blah, blah, blah. And then after talking to her for, I don't know, about 4 or 5 minutes, and then she kept going, and then he came back and talked to me. And I said, why did you take my banana? And he looked at me and said, oh, you did not see Krishna? I said, what? He said, I gave your banana to Krishna. I said, it was just a girl. He said, your guru has not educated you properly. I said, what do you mean my guru hasn't educated me properly? It was just an ordinary woman walking past, and you took my banana and gave it to her. And he said, you have not been educated properly, right? So after that, I was like a little bit confused And I was trying to think, well, is he right? Was that girl God? So he was trying to say to me, you did not see, you have not been educated properly. She was God. He was implying that she was God. So that is the Mayavadi way of looking at things. And I was angry because, he took my banana away from me, gave it to the girl. Now, maybe I was wrong with that feeling, but what really got me angry was, he was trying to say that, she was God. Anyway, I never got my banana back. Okay, so an interesting statement here is, it is explicitly stated here that mana, respect, is offered to a superior, and charity is offered to an inferior. The living entities, according to different results of fruitive activities, may become rich or poor, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unchangeable. He's always full in his 6 opulences. Treating a living entity equally does not mean treating him as one would treat the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Compassion and friendliness do not necessitate falsely elevating someone to the exalted position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Well, that's what that so-called sadhu did. He was, it's exactly this point. Compassion and friendliness do not necessitate falsely elevating someone to the exalted position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that, he told me that you have not been educated properly. He said, your guru has not educated you properly. She was God. And that, really confused me, why he said that. Okay, well, God is in her heart. God is in the heart of every living entity. But that doesn't mean she's God, right? So he tried to make that point to me, and I didn't argue with him, but I felt, even at that time, I felt there was something wrong with the way he acted and what he did, especially taking the banana out of my hand and giving it to the girl. So compassion and friendliness do not necessitate falsely elevating someone to the exalted position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should not, at the same time, misunderstand that the super soul situated in the heart of an animal, like a hog, and the super soul situated in the heart of a learned brahmana are different. The super soul in all living entities is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his omnipotency, he can live anywhere, and he can create his Vaikuntha situation everywhere. That is his inconceivable potency. Therefore, when Narayana is living in the heart of a hog, he does not become a hog Narayana. It's not a hog Narayana, it's Narayana. He is always Narayana and is unaffected by the body of the hog. Well, this means that God is present in the hearts of every living entity. He does not become that living entity. He is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, this universal vision of Krishna in the heart of a devotee or in the mind of a devotee is what differentiates a devotee from other people, from mundane people. He does not see different, let's say, he sees the presence of God in the heart of every living entity. he does not differentiate. He doesn't say, well, God is in the heart of human beings only and not the bodies of living entities. Therefore, we can kill living entities and eat them. But see, that's not a fact. God is in the heart of every living entity. Therefore, we don't have the right to kill any living entity. But we do have the right to eat certain things, not, like we can eat, like apples and pears. We can eat different types of vegetables and so forth. But we can't eat living, higher level living entities like human beings, right? Or dogs or cats or whatever. So to learn how to eat properly, you have to have knowledge. Some people will eat anything. Right? That means that they have no knowledge about how to eat. They have no knowledge of how to see things. But we learn as devotees that you can't just eat anything. You can only eat those things that Krishna will accept. And first, they have to be offered. So Krishna doesn't accept, he doesn't accept a lot of things, such as
Haribol.
Okay.
Let's see, where is that?
Krishna doesn't accept meat. In other words, the flesh of a living being. But he does accept, apples and pears and, there's also living beings, but they are acceptable to the Lord. So you don't really commit a sin by eating an apple. But if you just eat the apple without having offered it first to Krishna, that is a sin. But Krishna has set aside certain things that we can eat, but we have to first offer them to Krishna. So those things are fruits and vegetables and milk and nuts and grains and things like that. Now, they are also living entities, but they're given to us by the mercy of the Lord as eatables. But there are other things, like cows and dogs and whatever. They're not given to us by Krishna to be eaten. So how do we know what to eat and what not to eat? There are also some kinds of living entities that we should not eat. Like we don't eat dogs and cats and things like that. So basically, if you look at it from the point of view of everything that is that grows is a living being. Okay, so that means there's trees, and on the trees there are leaves. So if we eat the leaf of the tree, there is no and first offer, let's say, the leaf to the Lord and then eat it, there's no karma involved. If we just eat the leaf without offering it to Krishna, there is karma. Okay, so, but if we want to eat a dog, for example, even if we offer it first to Krishna and then eat the dog, it's still sinful. Because dog is a higher order living entity, not on the same level as a human being, but still, it's a higher order living entity than a leaf or a tree. So how can we differentiate all these things? Well, you have to be educated. Now, in the case of a severe, let's say, famine, then you can't eat a dog because there's nothing else to eat, right? But that's a very, very extreme situation that most people will never be in. But it is possible in very extreme situations that one may be able to eat, like a dog or a cat or something, because there's nothing else to eat. But most people will never be in that situation. So it's a very special situation. Now, can you eat another living being and another human being? That's called cannibalism. Well, people do that sometimes because there's nothing else to eat. But it's a very, very rare situation. And cannibalism is not something that a devotee would ever stoop to. Uh, but there are situations in which people engage in cannibalism because there's nothing else to eat. But a devotee would never do that. Uh, in other words, kill another living entity and eat them. Uh, that's like one of the worst things you can do, even if you're starving. But see, you won't get into a position like that if you're following Krishna consciousness strictly, right? Following the rules and regulations. Why? Because Krishna will protect you. And that means he also makes sure that you always have the ability to have food. He's helping everyone to have food. And those people that get caught in these situations where there's no food available, uh, first of all, it's very rare nowadays. And a devotee should never be uh, in a situation to validate being a carnivorous uh, person who will eat other people, you or eat, let's say, animals. That would be considered sinful. Uh, Now, uh, eating an animal may be permitted if there's absolutely nothing else to eat, but eating another human being, that would never be permitted, even in the condition where there's nothing else to eat. But sometimes people do that when they're caught in situations and they become cannibals. They they will actually kill another human being and eat them. And there are examples of that. But a devotee would never stoop to such a low level. Okay, so are there any questions about this verse? All right, so it says the super soul in all living entities is the same Supreme Personality Godhead. By his omnipotency, he can live anywhere and he can create his Vaikuntha situation everywhere. That is his inconceivable potency. Therefore, when Narayan is living in the heart of a hog, he does not become a hog, Narayana. He is always Narayana and is unaffected by the body of the hog. So that means that the devotee has this universal uh, understanding or vision of the presence of God in every living entity. Not only in living entities, he's present everywhere, in everything. So you could say, well, is God present in a rock? Uh, yes, because uh, A rock is the energy of the Lord. It's made by the energy of the Lord, so he's present there also. He's present in everything. Is he more present in a human being than a rock? Not really, because, of course, the rock, it does not have the consciousness of a living being. But still, God is present in everything. So if we say, no, that he's not present in the rock, he's only present in living things, that would be a mistake, because he can be present in everything. Like, for example, uh, you have devotees that worship Shalagram Shila. That's a rock. So if you say, no, he's not present in rocks, he's only present in human beings, that would be a mistake, because we worship Shalagram Shila. And so this universal vision of the Lord is what makes a person civilized. Even if it's, even if it is accepted theoretically, not accepting the fact would lead to one becoming sinful. So we should accept, even theoretically, that God is present everywhere and in everything. So that's the proper vision of a devotee. If we differentiate, we say, well, he's only present in human beings, but he's not present in rocks. Mm-hmm. Well, then that differentiation would be a mistake. You mean to say he's not present in Shalagram Shila? And so we shouldn't get caught in that type of mistaken understanding. Krishna is present everywhere and in everything. Therefore, we have to be very careful what we do and how we treat things. Now, how did people validate eating meat? Well, they said that animals do not have a soul. Therefore, we can kill them and eat them. But that's not true. That's a false statement. The animal doesn't have a soul. So some people, they say, well, animals don't have a soul like human beings. Now, obviously, the Christians say that. They don't believe that the animal has a soul, or they believe that, well, if the animal does have a soul, it's inferior to a human being. So therefore, they can eat the animal.
How they mold the concept just to satisfy their own sense gratification.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah. Okay, so any questions, comments? So this is a very nice statement here in this purport. It says, there are two Sanskrit words used here, mana and dana. Mana indicates a superior, and dana indicates one who gives charitable gifts or is compassionate towards an inferior. We cannot treat the Supreme Personality of Godhead as an inferior who is dependent on our charitable gifts. When we give charity, it is to a person who is inferior in his material or economic condition. Charity is not given to a rich man. Similarly, it is explicitly stated here that mana respect is offered to us. It is explicitly stated here that mana respect is offered to a superior, and charity is offered to an inferior. The living entities, according to different results of fruitive activities, may become rich or poor, but the Supreme Personal Godhead is unchangeable. He is always full in 6 opulences. Treating a living entity equally does not mean treating him as one would treat the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Compassion and friendliness do not necessitate falsely elevating someone to the exalted position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should not, at the same time, misunderstand that the super soul situated in the heart of an animal like a hog and the super soul situated in the heart of a learned Brahmana are different. The super soul in all living entities is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his omnipotency, he can live anywhere, and he can create his Vaikuntha situation everywhere. That is his inconceivable potency. Therefore, when Narayana is living in the heart of a hog, he does not become a hog, Narayana. He's always Narayana and is unaffected by the body of the hog. Okay, so the main statement here is treating a living entity equally does not mean treating him as one would treat the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Compassion and friendliness do not necessitate falsely elevating someone to the exalted position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should, see that guy who, took that banana out of my hand and gave it to this girl. He said, and I said, well, why did you take my banana away? He said, oh, you did not see God. And I said, well, it was a girl, not God. He said, oh, you have not been trained properly by your guru. So he was a very clever guy. But if it was his own banana, I wouldn't have any objection, right? But he takes it out of my hand, gives it to the girl, and he's implying that the girl is God. And I was not able to see God. So that's my about philosophy. Everything's on the same level, right? But no, that girl is not God. God is present in her heart, yes. God is present in the heart of every living entity. He's also present in the stone and everything living and non-living. God is present. He's omnipresent. Yes, omnipresence. So what he could have done was go and purchase a banana and then give it to the girl, right? But to take the banana I had in my hand and gave it to the girl on the plea that she was God. And that was completely nonsense. At the time, though, he confused me when he said that. But even up to today, so I'm still talking about it, right? Because he was a Mayavadi, and he thought, he tried to make the excuse that the girl was God, and I was not able to see that. Well, God is present in that girl's body, no doubt about it, but she's not God. And the banana that he took out of my hand, well, that was a mistake. And he didn't ask my permission or anything. He just grabbed it and ran after the girl and gave it to her. And he did that because he was attracted to her. It wasn't that he was doing something spiritual. He was just attracted to her body. If she was a really ugly girl, he would not have done it. but the way my bodies, they mix everything up, and they get you confused. Right? Okay. I think we'll stop there today. And our takeaway today is it says, compassion and friendship do not necessitate falsely elevating someone to the exalted position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is exactly what that Mayavadi guy did. He elevated this ordinary lady that he was attracted to the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should not at the same time misunderstand that the super soul situated in the heart of an animal, like a hog, and the super soul situated in the heart of a learned Brahmana are different. The super soul in all living entities is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his omnipotency, he can live anywhere, and he can create his Vaikuntha situation everywhere. That is inconceivable potency. Therefore, when Narayana is living in the heart of a hog, he does not become a hog Narayana. He is always Narayana and is unaffected by the body of the hog. Well, if we say that God is present everywhere, so that means he's in he's in the heart of the hog also. Does that mean that we can worship the hog? No, we can't worship it. We can respect the hog, meaning the pig. Let's just use the word pig. We can respect the pig, understanding that pig is a living entity and he has God in his heart. But we cannot say that the pig is God. Now, there is incarnation of a hog that Krishna assumes, but it's not an ordinary hog. So, therefore, all these differentiations have to be understood by a devotee. So, when he sees the incarnation of the Lord as a hog, well, that the particular, let's say, pastime of the Lord doesn't make the Lord an ordinary hog. Especially when you see the supernatural things. The hog goes down into the ocean where the earth, the earth's planet has fallen down into, and with the tusks lifts up the earth and puts it back in its orbit. So that hog incarnation of the Lord is not an ordinary hog. It's not an ordinary pig. So you cannot put that on the same level as an ordinary pig. So it requires real discrimination to understand the Lord as in this incarnation as a hog and an ordinary hog. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
This is Pradyumna Das Maharaj. Please accept my obeisances. So Maharaj, the example you gave, right, about that banana, that guy, and it gave it to her. So we are saying that the Krishna is exist in everyone's heart as Paramatma. So that guy, how we are saying that he, that's my interpretation. So when we say that we need to see in everyone God, that means we don't treat them as a god, but we still should respect them, right? As if you are respecting to God, you should respect. Isn't that the right statement? So my point is, if I interpret, he might be respecting him. He's not worshipping her, that girl, as a god like we do for Krishna. We do worship, proper rituals and all those things. But just giving a banana, he probably respecting as a offering to Paramatma or God.
Well, not really. I mean, he was attracted to her.
Oh, okay. So that's the another problem. But in general, I'm talking about yeah. So
Well,
how
why
do we
would he
make
give
a
only to a beautiful girl?
Yeah.
There's so many people.
Will he give it to an ugly girl?
yeah. So that if that is that's different story. If he's just looking and for a bit want to give only for beautiful women and not everyone an ugly girl. So that's, but in childhood only from Maharaj, like just want to share, like in our like India, it's very common that my parents or somebody else that is understanding that God can come in any form to test you, that kind of thing, right? So test your actually how pure you are. So he can be, we can come in bigger, he can come in any form. He doesn't need to be come in an opulent form that okay, he's a God. So how do we differentiate that then? I mean, definitely we are not that pure that some God will come and test me. But I'm saying um, that's a that's kind of common understanding in a lot of. I mean,
That common understanding is wrong. And people in India have that common understanding that you just referred to. It's actually wrong.
mm-hmm.
If the Lord appears as a hog, that hog is a supernatural being. It's not an ordinary hog, right? So you cannot say it's a hog in the sense that it's an ordinary hog. It's a hog that one has never seen before, and it's not on the level of an ordinary hog. It's a supernatural being. It's an incarnation of Krishna,
Yeah.
very special form. So we cannot put it on the level of a ordinary hog. Now, on the other hand, this man that took that banana from me and handed it to that girl and said, "Well, you did not see that she is Krishna." Now he is artificially putting her on the level of God, and that's another mistake. Uh, she's not. She's not God. She does have Krishna in her heart, but she's not the supreme personality of Godhead. And his whole let's say, excuse of taking the banana from my hand, putting it and giving it to her. And then when I asked her, I said, "Why did you take my banana?" He said, "Oh, you did not see God." You know, so uh, that is typical of a nonsense person. He he claims to be. He claims that someone is on the level of God, but that girl was not on the level of God at all. She should be respected, but she cannot be elevated artificially to being on the level of God. So this is Mayavad philosophy. Mayavad is just mix everything up and confuse people. And I was confused when he said that at first, but I knew there was something wrong with his statement, right? And I was really upset that he took my banana also. He could have asked me, he said, "Well, can I please give this banana to this young lady that just walked past me?" I would have said, "Okay, here, take it, you know." But no, he just grabbed it, ran after her, and gave it to her. Why? Because he was attracted by her, right? her body, he wasn't seeing the presence of super soul in her body. He was attracted to her body. So that's what really got me upset. That he, of course, I didn't get angry, but I thought about it a long time. Is he right in what he did? Is he right that I'm not seeing properly? But actually, he was a real Mayavadi, just mixing everything up and pretending that he has a superior vision than I do. But his vision was inferior because he was just attracted to the girl, her body. If she was a really ugly person, he would never have done that. Okay. So, any other questions or comments or objections? Okay, so the idea that the impersonalist sometimes accepts a poor individual soul as being Daridra Narayana, meaning that Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has become poor. This is a contradiction. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is full in all opulences. He can agree to live with a poor soul or even with an animal, but this does not make him poor. Okay. Yeah, so the idea that the impersonalist sometimes accepts a poor individual soul as being Daridra Narayana, or meaning that Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has become poor. This is a contradiction. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is full in all opulences. He can agree to live with a poor soul or even with an animal, but this does not make him poor. So that's an interesting statement, very, very profound statement also. And it's just another example of how Mayavadis mix everything up and confuse people. The impersonalist sometimes accepts a poor individual soul as being Daridra Narayana, meaning that Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has become poor. This is a contradiction. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is full in all opulences. He can agree to live with a poor soul or even with an animal, but this does not make him poor. Okay, so therefore, it says also, the living entities, according to different results of fruitive activities, may become rich or poor, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unchangeable. He is always full in his six opulences. Treating a living entity equally does not mean treating him as one would treat the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Compassion and friendliness do not necessitate falsely elevating someone to the exalted position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's exactly what that Mayavadi did. And that's what confused me. He said, "Oh, you did not see God." He takes that banana from me, runs after her, and hands it to her. And then he talked to her for, I don't know, about 5 or 10 minutes. And then he slowly came back and talked to me. So he falsely elevated her to the exalted position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we should not at the same time misunderstand that the supersoul situated in the heart of an animal like a hog and the supersoul situated in the heart of a learned Brahmana are different. The supersoul in all living entities is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his omnipotency, he can live anywhere, and he can create his Vaikuntha situation everywhere. That is inconceivable. That is his inconceivable potency. Therefore, when Narayana is living in the heart of a hog, he does not become a hog, Narayana. He is always Narayana and is unaffected by the body of the hog. But on the other hand, he does not become a hog. He might be, no, he is in the heart of every living entity, but that does not make him an inferior living entity. The Mayavadis will say things and sort of validate things falsely, and they confuse people. Therefore, they can worship anything. For example, in the Bible, there's the history of what was his name? I forget his name. Anyway, the example here is very important. It says, the Lord can live anywhere, and he can create his Vaikuntha situation everywhere. That is his inconceivable potency. Therefore, when Narayana is living in the heart of a hog, he does not become a hog Narayana. He is always Narayana and is unaffected by the body of the hog. Yes, so he does accept the body of a hog, but it's not an ordinary hog. It's a supernatural hog that's performing supernatural, let's say, feats. So we cannot say that it's an ordinary pig. So sometimes the Lord does take the form of a hog, but he is transcendental. He's not an ordinary pig or hog. What's the name of the hog incarnation? It's Vama.
Varaha.
Varaha. Yeah.
Varaha.
Varaha. Yeah. So Varaha is not an ordinary pig. And he demonstrates he's not by doing supernatural things that no ordinary pig could do. So whenever we see supernatural power in someone, we have to be very careful. And now, people can do tricks and act as if they have supernatural powers. But if we see someone just like Varaha, he looks like a pig, but actually he doesn't look like an ordinary pig. He begins by being coming out of the nostril of who was it? He came out of the nostril.
Brahma, right?
Brahma, yeah.
Brahma.
And then he becomes this gigantic pig-like living being. So he's definitely not an ordinary pig. And then he does a supernatural, has a supernatural behavior and power. He lifts the entire earth that had fallen into the Garbhodak ocean. He lifts the entire earth and puts it back in its orbit. So now you can understand this is not an ordinary pig. This is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if what the Mayavadis do is they try and elevate a normal person to the level of God. Well, if he could, if that person that they've elevated to the level of God, if that person can lift Govardhan Hill, then he is God. But that person can't even lift a table, so how can it be God? You know, so they make all these, false gods that don't have the power of God. And people that are ignorant, they accept it. So Krishna was able to live Govardhan, Parvat. So that means he's God. But somebody comes and says, I am God, but he can't even pick up a table. How can we accept him as God? It's complete nonsense. Okay, Haribol. Where is this?
Ki Jai. Haribol Prabhu, we'll see you again in the evening. Haribol.